Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Here we go. How's it going? Fantastic. Awesome week. Love October. It is crisp. It is clean. The blue sky in Colorado is extra blue. And I think it's because of all the yellow trees. How are you, sir?
The colors. When I go home into my neighborhood, whoever did the landscaping design, the red, the orange, the green, and then the mountains in the background, blue skies, beautiful. So I hope everyone's having an awesome October. If you're not in October, shame on you. Shame on you. Another good reason for a good week is I was just on the EntreArchitect group's AMA, first AMA ever, which when Mark LePage suggested it to me, I'm like, at first I had to remember what an AMA is.
And let's tell, so let's tell everybody what it is. So it's Ask Me Anything.
Yes.
And it was awesome. So I was honestly a little bit skeptical.
Jealous.
Slash skeptical. I was on the week before. I was teaching people stuff. No, it was.
And I think my point is proven.
It was awesome because, however, Mark, who is a smart guy, figured out how to do the split screen.
Yeah.
And then it showed you guys. It was super professional and super engaging. And I thought, man, I hope this is a recurring thing because this is like another piece of content that I would love to listen to. I just love when people get asked questions like you got asked.
Yeah.
You know, even who's taller, Lance or Al.
There you go. Shout out Eric. He uses Be Live, and then there were some technical issues, so there's two videos.
Yeah, but that wasn't because of anything Mark did. It was because of Facebook was just glitching out that morning. Because I think I even left the comment, hey, I'm admin on a couple other pages, and everybody's having problems today.
I couldn't even get onto Facebook when it was doing it.
Yeah, so it had nothing to do with it. It was literally Facebook.
Yep. So if you want to watch that, go join EntreArchitect group on Facebook, and you'll see it. You just have to scroll down and find it. Maybe, I don't know if he could make that video. You know how you can upload photos to a group? Maybe you can make that video part of it, so you just have those videos in there.
Oh, I'm going to give Mark some unsolicited advice. I would pin that to the top. I would pin that video to the top. So every week that I would do an AMA, I would pin it to the top. So every time you scroll,
and then a new.
Yep, because that's what I do for our podcast page and other pages too. Is if it's a hot topic of the week, pin it to the top, pin it to the top.
And I won't rat you out, but Lance is admin on some pages that have thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So best practices. Okay, very cool. Anyways, he let me know after the podcast. He listened to our last episode. And we were talking about how to do some things with contracts. We were talking about two things. One is how to do basically make the site plan, the response to comments, its own kind of section. And then the second thing was, how do you start to sell
extra
building
services.
supplies, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, guys, I'll send you my contracts that you can get by joining his EntreArchitect group, like paid group that he has. So if you go to EntreArchitect.com, he has a whole kind of like masterclass. We'll put a link to it where you join, where basically it's like what we do for Revit Furniture, give you all the Revit stuff that you need. He does that for running a firm. And he also runs a firm too, so he practices what he preaches. So I just wanted to go over some of them. And this is just one small part of, everything that he gives out. But he sent us, four things that could be useful. One was the cover letter that he uses, and he made a template so that you fill in your own stuff. I like this cover letter. When I'm emailing clients, that's normally his kind of thoughts is what I'll do. So I'm wondering if he just has this in the cover letter, or if he sends it as an attachment. Did you have any thoughts on that?
So I quickly read through everything this morning right before we started recording, and I turned to Al and I go, wow, we weren't that far off. I mean, obviously I think this one is better developed, and it's just more clean and clear, and the templates are beautiful. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing I would really complain about from an overall general structure. about how everything's set up. I think it's perfect, and I think that's how you land clients. It's the first part is you need to have this system set up.
Yep. And the second file is his proposal that he sends out. And what I liked about it was our proposal, we have a lot of bulleted points and then deliverables, and he has more description of what's going to happen. And I almost think we could combine some of these thoughts to make a better contract for us.
Well, I think I've mentioned this several times, is it would be nice if we had graphics to go along with it, so it showed the level of detail, like literally in schematic design. Okay, it's just you show the floor plans at a schematic design level. You design development. Oh, see a little bit more developed, and here's what you're looking for in construction docs.
I thought we had that once. I thought we had that, or we had sets, like a DD set we could attach.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying, and I like it.
That is a goal for me. For the firm, for me / the firm, by the end of the year, early next, is to finally put that frickin' graphic together, because I feel like even if it was supplementary to each of these detailed phases, and it probably should be supplementary, where it's just like see attached for supplementary graphics that go along with to show you.
Yeah.
People are visual, and I think it just helps them buy into, oh, this is a process. That's why this is costing this amount of money. That's why these people are professionals, and it just helps sell you as a total package.
And we so how ours is set up now, and how I've been sending out proposals, you've been doing the same thing, is that we have a cover photo in like cover page.
Oh, our putums are right on there.
Yeah.
And as you can tell from the photo, Lance is slightly taller.
And then after that, we have kind of just a whole bunch of testimonials. And then it's our contract. And at the end, we have example, photos of built work. We should send that to Mark, just so.
You do it that way? I do it this way. I do the cover, and then the little spiel about, references and referrals, and then a comparable or applicable work or whatever. And then the proposal comes at the end. So it's all sex, and then the details at the end. Meat, yeah.
So I put the meat in the middle, and I put the dessert at the end.
That's interesting.
And the reason why is...
that why you're on fire?
That's probably why I'm on fire. It's the same logic that when you're doing a presentation. So your first or second best view is first, and then your first or second best view is last.
Yeah.
So that's how I bookend it.
Well, what's awesome is there's two of us, so then there's diversity in how we're going after it.
Yep. What I also thought was cool, and you'll have to join Mark's EntreArchitect group to kind of get into the weeds of all this, is that he broke it down each phase by percentages, and then he has a rolling compensation depending on what your construction budget is. So I've heard people talk about it. I've never seen it executed, and here it is, on our computers. That if the budget goes up, well, then the fee goes up, and you can link that to your payments, and you can settle all up at the end. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of
well.
Cool.
I'm open 100% starting to try that and see if we can get it to work. I think it has to be on an experimental basis for sure for us, because it's just not. It's contrary to how we do it, which is fine.
I know. And I wonder if it's a shift in the client's mindset. Meaning,
I think 100%.
So instead of thinking about a chunk of thousands of dollars in like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 increments, it's like, oh yeah, cabinets are 5%, architecture is 4%, framing is 15%.
Well, how many times have we been in those meetings where they look at our contract and they go, what? X amount of dollars? And we're like, your cabinets are going to cost twice as much.
Yeah. And
so then I think maybe it's one thing for us to say it, but if we link it in the way these contracts are set up, maybe then it's a one. Then it will finally click.
Yeah. I wonder. It just depends. It'd be interesting. I wish somehow you could test it with like you send one contract to one client to let's say you're my client, Lance, and we do our regular way, and then we erase your memory and then send one with at a higher at a percentage fee, but do this shift.
Or I'll throw one at you. The last two houses that I've done. Actually, not the last two. There was one house where I said, okay, you have two different options. Actually, no. The last two houses that I did get. Yeah. So one of them, I said, okay, if you're going to pay everything up front, here's your fee. If we're going to do in increments, here's your fee. And I gave them two different contracts, and they ended up going with the all up front, and then it was a bigger fee. And then so I gave him 2 options. So why couldn't you do that with just one client? Why couldn't you say, hey, we can go about this 2 ways, fixed or percentage of budget? And I think in their mind, you could come up with, everybody thinks they can get it done cheaper. So then they all come in like, oh yeah, I know, 'cause I'm going to be doing this and that, and I'm going to get it down to 100 and blah, blah, blah square foot. And in the end, if then they decide they trust their gut and their thoughts, and they say, yeah, I'm going to do it for cheaper. And then you end up signing that contract that is tied to construction costs. And then they just ratchet it up and you end up making more money. Well, they made the decision. I don't know.
Yeah. There you go. Interesting. It'd be interesting to do that. 2 other documents he has is just a reference letter, which is kind of cool. And then basically his standard terms and conditions. And why he included this is because he has a section in there for purchasing through the office of the architect. Did you even see that?
No. I am looking at it now.
And basically, you can purchase materials, products, stones, tiles, lightings, fabric, furniture, paint, carpets, artwork, blah, 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 through his office. I almost want to get him on and say, how did you set all that up?
Products and markets.
And I think part of it, and I called one of our interior designers, and she hasn't called me back.
When did you do that?
Yes, 2 days ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Michelle called me back. You know who I'm talking about.
Ooh, I got on her about that.
Yeah.
24 hours or less.
Yeah. But how that actually gets set up. And not only do I want to do furniture, fixtures, hardware, all that stuff, I want to do framing, roof tiles, Elon Musk, whatever.
There it is. Yeah. And so that's why that's just to reiterate, that's why this got shared with us, is because of the last podcast where you said, hey, can we do this?
Yeah.
Can we start purchasing? It's super interesting. I like it. I don't mind it. It's more services.
Once we get our new offices, we could do it here. It's just that we already have like 8 guys in this tiny place. So once we get our new office, we might have a place where the materials that we use the most, those manufacturers happily will send us samples. We can have them laid out there, and then maybe that's why, like, okay, we were thinking.
Oh, we have plenty. We'll have a huge space for that.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good idea. If we don't end up using that, if we're not building any houses, tiny houses, storage, all that. Cool. Well, good stuff. Yeah, I would encourage everybody to, if you haven't already and you're listening to this podcast, or in the future, go check out EntreArchitect.com and sign up. Especially if you're starting out, I couldn't think of a better resource. I think because we're not giving out our contracts, and I think Mark is the perfect resource for that.
Exactly. As much as Revit Furniture helps you leapfrog and just really focus you and says, here's a proven system and here's everything you need. And these are like our answers, not to blow up, but these are correct, tested answers. If you are just starting a firm, I think, why not go get all that? I mean, he's been through it.
You're going to leapfrog and do it 2 ways. So first go to EntreArchitect.com, sign up, then go right over to RevitFurniture.com. Boom, boom, you're done.
Millionaire. Instant. Guaranteed. Stamp.
And then listen to every single podcast episode of this podcast.
Exactly.
And then you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Cool. So with that, we have a guest listener by the name of Collin Abdallah, and I hope I read that correctly. So he contacted us, I think, last week, and I'm going to read just a little excerpt from a email that he sent us. So he says, after listening to your guest episode number 158 on the EntreArchitect podcast, I was inspired. It's perfect to create my own website and platform, prop.architecture, to celebrate small firm architects and get started on building the foundation for my own future practice. I have since grown proparchitecture.com into a portfolio website I used to showcase my own work, both school and professional, as well as a blog to help architecture students like myself alongside me as I dive deeper into the evolving practice of architecture and internet marketing. So we had a few back and forths with Collin, and he ended up asking if we would if we could do a Q&A, and then he would write it on his blog. So I hope this is okay with Collin, and he's a listener, so
he's going to find out.
We promised him that we would record them, but Alex, as we drove back and forth to work, aka teaching, but we haven't driven this week, so I think that's where it fell through. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this on air, and we're gonna pick. There's about he sent over, I think, like
12
dozen, or sorry, not 12 dozen, but 12 questions. So we're going to try to read a couple each week and hammer it out that way. But they're great questions, and I think it literally reflects the name of this podcast, Inside the Firm.
Yeah, and I think we'll do 3 this week, and then maybe answer the rest for him next week, so that he can get it out to his listeners in a comprehensive whole thing, and then we'll trickle in questions as needed on our firm.
There you go.
Yeah,
perfect. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read the first question to you, Lance. Are you ready? Are you in the hot seat?
Yep.
How tall are you? That's not the question. What does a typical day at your firm look like? What types of projects are your employees working on at a given time? Do they often have more than one project on their plate due to the smaller size of the firm?
So my day, full disclosure here, is obviously different than my business partner's day because we're different people and we work differently. So my typical day starts out, I'm usually in between 8 and 10 and to start off the day. And the reason for that is I have a home office, and if I get on a roll in the morning hammering out administrative tasks, then I just continue until I'm at a good stopping point. And if that means that I don't get into a little bit later, that's fine, as long as everybody's on autopilot and I'm not missing a meeting. So the projects, and then my typical day from there is, lately I've been able to block out chunks of time to do tasks in a much more efficient way by delegating more of the as-built work out to one of our employees who is an expert at it. And Alex actually kind of said, he actually told me, like, I think last week or the week before, why are you out so much doing these? Like, why are you doing this anymore? And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. I don't think I need to be doing that anymore. I think this guy is on top of it. And he has been. And we actually gave him a raise yesterday because he's doing such a great job. So I've been able to actually get back to real architecture, doing architecture work and drafting more, at least, and designing more, 50% of my time. And then the other 50% is administrative work. What type of projects that my employees are working on my side are a lot of different houses. We're doing additions, some remodels. We're doing some drafting for general steel, and then we are doing custom houses. So a huge variety of work. And then, do they often have more than one project on their plate? Yes, but it's sort of, so everybody has probably 3 to 6 projects that is on their plate at one given time. It doesn't mean they're obviously simultaneously working on them at the same time. It's sort of a linear thing. So we try to get to a good start and stop point. Let's say I give a project to somebody and I say, okay, here's a program. Here's kind of a sketch I have for a bubble diagram. All I want are schematic level floor plans by the end of the week. They hammer those out, and then there's something else comes right after that, and I say, okay, take this from schematic design to design development level. So it's sort of a triage is how I would say. Projects come in, we hammer them out as quickly as we can. But yeah, 3 to 6 is usually what they do. And then the critical part here is that Alex and I try to do too is, so back to, sort of ownership of everything. Keep whoever's on that project from the beginning, try to keep them on there to the end. So there's just there's no problem of transference of information.
Yeah. My day, it's generally kind of similar. I'm upset if I do not get in by 6 o'clock. And the only reason I'm not in by 6 o'clock is because I fail and hit the snooze sometimes. And I do that for the same reason Lance does it, is that I can come here and focus. Who knows when my baby and my wife get up and all that. And, if he sees me,
exactly,
he will attack
Exactly.
me.
And Alex has a baby who is under a year old. So, drastic difference. My kids, it's a routine every time. My wife takes the kids to school.
They probably don't even look at you anymore.
Honestly, barely in the morning. It's mostly a, hey, and that's it. And then they're off to school, so yeah. But the key is the blocking out mornings. I just can't express how important that is to really become a morning person if you're going to be a highly productive person.
Yep, absolutely. So a lot of times my projects, in the morning I can block out time to do stuff. But then the rest of the day is this email, this email, that, just craziness. I'm like, holy cow, what just happened? Like yesterday was just a whole bunch of nonsense.
And Fridays are real difficult for us to get anything done because a lot of our morning is on Friday is this podcast. You get preparing for it, and then I cut it afterwards.
And it seems like there's always an interview for a potential employee or client or something like that. And then there's firm lunches. We all go out and we have a blast at firm lunches. So that's my kind of day. My guys, which Lance and I, we split. Sometimes I steal his guys. Sometimes he steals my guys. But one guy, if there's a major project, that will be his major. And then there'll just be a supplemental, like 1 or 2 little projects. One of my other guys, he's catch-all, has 3 or 4 projects, going at a time. And then there's a student, you could call him an intern, that I try to just give one project. And why I like doing that is that then they can see the whole project, from front to beginning and really learn. So that's it. That's it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the next question that we picked out, okay?
Oh, awesome.
Okay. As students, we often struggle to develop our own design process in school. What does your firm's design process look like? Do you use a more drawing-oriented method, or do you prefer jumping right into 3D modeling?
So I'll break that question in half. The first half, we struggle to develop our own design process in school. There is an answer for you, and I will selfishly promote our book.
You should.
The creativity code, because it's creativity through architecture. And the backstory is we made this book to kind of release what we developed in the class. And the class that we taught was engineers how to do architecture and how to design. Because basically at the end of their college career, they were asked to design a building, and they were just making very efficient engineering looking boxes. and the faculty and staff was like, okay, obviously this works, but not everyone's going to make a box. Our world isn't built like that. So they wanted us to bring creativity and skill to these designers. And Lance and I didn't go about it trying to think like, oh, okay, we're going to have them paint. We're going to have them do this great, you're going to go out and, hike and come up with an idea. Is we gave them a process, and that process was learning visual design principles, creating a filter for yourself, and then creating a system of how to check and critique yourself at the end so that you can see, like, did your partie line up? Did you boil it down to a filter, and then did you apply that filter not only to the elevations but the floor plans, all that other stuff? And we give you examples of our real world projects, right? So if you're a student, you'll be familiar with some of these concepts, but it's like we were talking about earlier in the podcast, or like when my dad comes on and he says, hey, focus on a skill, focus on your attitude, and attack it aggressively. Well, that's coming from a guy who basically got up to the C-suite, just below the C-suite level without a college education at a huge firm, IBM. So we are boiling down a process that we use that has worked extremely well in school. So go ahead, grab that book. It's $15. It's worth it.
Amazon.com, the creativity code, Al Gore. Check it out. It's awesome. And so I want to jump in and just say interject one little thing here. The other thing that I think is missed is, and that a lot of architecture and design students are sort of led to believe, is that you have to reinvent the wheel. And in my world, it is not about that. And one of my favorite quotes is, good artists copy, great artists steal, and then I like to add ideas. So you're not actually, that's the key, is you're taking good and great ideas from other seasoned designers and implementing those ideas and those things into your design and making it happen. You're not reinventing the wheel, you are redrawing it in your own way and using your filter.
Yeah, exactly. And what it's doing is that it's giving you extremely quickly a proven framework. So then you can take
framework
these ideas,
and a palette.
Yep. And run them through that framework, and then all of a sudden your framework changes because you're a different person. It's a different project, so you get something unique. And then you can start to create your own framework, right? Through experience, because you can't create a framework based off of no experience, right? And that's the problem with marketing too, because I'm reading this book about marketing, and then I thought about what we used to apply, because everything is, focus on what your customer wants. What I thought my customer wanted 3 years ago is different than what I thought now. It was a novice idea of it. I'm like, oh my God, even if I had this book 3 years ago, my answer wouldn't have been as good, So it's hard for you to create a framework and process off of very little experience. So take this one as your starting point and then start to morph it through there.
And how about a second question? Do you use a more drawing-oriented method, or do you prefer jumping right into 3D modeling?
I do a little bit both. And normally, I'm designing something right now. I just jumped into 3D modeling. Now. But what will happen is if someone at our firm is doing something and they'll show me something, I don't know whether they sketched it out first or went in 3D model, but then I'll probably sketch, over their things. But I pretty much just execute in 3D now.
Yeah.
I'll do a thumbnail, like literally a tiny little thing, just on a side of paper that gets thrown away.
Yep. I've been doing brand new houses, and I sent over a really good bubble diagram based off of the program that I gleaned from the client in the original, the initial meeting. So I sketched that out on our iPad. So it's pure digital, and then sent over that, and then he interpreted that and went right into Revit and hammered it out. So I think it depends on your comfort level with Revit as well, or 3D modeling. I think the tools that you use digitally you are limited by your limitations. So the more that you are well versed in those tools in Revit and these 3D modeling programs, the better off that you are able to use that tool. So you don't become the tool. The tool is your tool.
Yep. Okay, want me to read the next question to you?
Sure. Last one for prop.
Yep. You both landed jobs at award-winning firms after graduation. What advice do you have for graduating students to help them land their dream job? And in case you're just listening, I worked for Daniel Libeskind, World Trade Center designer, famous architect. If you don't know him, just Google him and you'll see. Lance worked for Studio HT. Both principals won Young Architect of the Year for the whole United States separately.
And then the other thing I would add on to that is Alex and I both landed. Well, I'll just jump into it this way. So here's how I think you do it. And sorry for clearing my throat. Here's how I think you do it is Alex and I did it the same way is. So if you are in your 5th year or whatever year is your last year of when you're going to graduate, you should have your portfolio, your cover letter and your resume ready to go by Christmas. Okay? Then right after Christmas, while everybody is just starting to get into their semester, you start sending off a condensed version of that digitally to potential employers. And go ahead.
I think we did it over Christmas break.
Exactly.
And right when school started, we probably looked at each other's and then we're like, okay, let's send them out.
Yep. That's exactly what happened. And then, so you send out, you're going to send out introductory letters or inquiries to firms. Hopefully you can get a hold of the principal. The key is there's 2 different ways. So if you're looking at a small firm, chances are you can probably get right to the principal's email. If you're looking at a big firm, you have to go through HR. So what you have to do is if you're going to go through HR, and this is what I did and Alex did too, is contact HR and then ask them who the hiring principal is. So then you can get right to the principal again. So first of all, you have to just get right to who you need to look at your stuff, okay? Then when you send that initial, hey, I'm interested in working for your firm. I noticed I really enjoyed this project. So first you got to set up like a compliment sandwich, and you need to compliment that firm and say, hey, I like what you did here. Here's why I'm interested. And then your last thing that you say in the cover letter introduction is, I'm going to be in New York City during the week of, and that week of is your spring break. So when you are graduating that year, you don't get to go party. You go out and you use it. So because especially if you're trying to get a job in New York, or in my case like Colorado, when we get these out of state people, we want to have a face-to-face. Even at our firm, we want to have a face-to-face with you and get a feel for your personality and how you're going to work.
And there's so many good people that we don't want to make you drive here just for us. So honestly, you're competing with people. You might be the best. You might be in the top 5, but we might say, hey, there's 4 that are just as good that are already here.
Exactly.
So you let them know that you will be there no matter what. It doesn't matter. You're coming to Colorado anyways. You're coming to New York anyways. So they're like, might as well interview.
Might as well interview him, yeah. One of our employees did that.
Yeah.
Jackson, that's how Jackson
Shout
did
out.
It. Yeah, love that guy.
Honestly, we maybe weren't going to interview him, and he's
yeah.
the best.
He goes. Yeah, we might not have, and then he said, no, I'll be out here during X and X, and we're like, oh, well, then let's interview you. Yeah. So make it easy, the easiest way possible, and don't leave any doubt for that person that you're contacting that they should be interviewing you.
Yep. And I'll just take a different approach to the same question, because Lance and I did this, and the people that we want to hire that we teach, they all do this, is that you need to start just rocking it from the first day that you get there. So what that means is every project that you do from the beginning project, you take extremely seriously. You do exactly what the professor is saying. And then, you make sure you meet all the standards, and then you just add one skill on top of that, right? So whether it's learning how to draw trees, or learning how to render, or learning how to do a Photoshop thing, just one per project, because by the time you're done, you'll have, 8 extra skills that weren't taught to you. And one, for example, was there was this lady who did this house, and a lot of people do amazing houses. This was maybe our first or second year teaching, and then she did this PowerPoint where she looked at shadows and leaves and all this, and then applied each one of those thoughts to her building. And I go, well, how did you think about formatting this way? She's like, well, I listened to your lecture and it seemed very logical, because I was like, yeah, that's kind of what we wanted to do, and you just did it, but you did it with this extra step. I was like,
for the most part, your professors know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah. So really start increasing your own internal standard, right? Because you're going to go against these people, and we've known from experience that people were just as good and or better than Lance and I, talent-wise, skills-wise, everything, who did not do that. And then the scales tipped, and they stayed level, and we went above.
Exactly. Raw talent is one thing, but effort is a whole nother thing. Yeah. And I would kind of close with this part. This, as far as that question goes, is in between school years, in the summer, I would learn a new program. So one summer it was was Form Z. Then the next summer it was 3ds Max. So,
and your first one should be Revit.
Absolutely.
So if you don't know Revit, that's what you're doing this summer. Yeah. This winter, Christmas, or whenever.
Above and beyond. Yep. Go for it. Cool. All right. With that, I want to introduce our next.
I got to stop again.
Oh, something else? You got something else?
No, just if you're learning Revit, so shamelessly, we sell our whole system, and for firm licenses, it's a substantial investment. It's over $1,000, because this is real legit stuff. There is a student version. If you go on revitfurniture.com, put in your student email address, it drops. It's under $100. No, it's about $100, something like that. But it's gold. So if you want to learn Revit, that's where to do it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and with that, I'd like to introduce our guest, one of our guests for this week, with our best and worst advice segment. It is none other than Courtney Gonzalez. She's one of the founding members of what is it called? EntreArchitects.com. They do great work. They're down in Florida. So Courtney earned her master's degree from Norwich University. She has devoted her career to designing and managing custom high-end residential projects in all stages, from conceptual sketch to construction documents. Her portfolio includes new construction and renovations. Courtney is passionate about developing beautiful designs that are both sensitive and inspiring, and she is an avid listener, and I asked her to send in, Alex and I did, best and worst advice, so we're gonna have a little listen.
Hey guys, this is Courtney Gonzalez with EntreArchitects in Sarasota, Florida. Thank you so much for having me on today, and also for giving such an awesome insight into what it is to be inside of an architecture firm. The best advice that I ever heard related to the architecture world that I still use today was actually when I was interning. My boss at the time told me, or advised me rather, not to wear headphones while I was at work. And this wasn't because there was a policy against headphones or that he thought it was distracting or anything like that. It was actually because we had an open studio, and he saw that having your ears open to your colleagues, your peers, your boss, everybody coming in and out of that studio as being an amazing learning opportunity for a young intern. And at the time, I actually remember being quite upset about it, because when you are in school, as you remember, I'm sure, and as many of the listeners recall, headphones and watching TV, watching movies, listening to music while working really was just a cultural thing. It was an easy way to keep the workflow going, to kind of get through that final push and have something else that was in the background. So I remember being pretty upset about it, but it actually turned out to be one of the best things that I ever, the best pieces of advice that I ever took, because I really was able to learn a lot from my peers and my colleagues and the people coming in that a lot of the people around me sitting at the other desk that didn't take that advice kind of missed. And I think it jump-started me and really pushed me forward in my career. The worst advice that I ever received related to architecture, I think, was actually just a few years ago when I started my new firm. My business partner and I were seeking other people's advice, really asking a lot of questions. And at the time, we didn't even have a name for our firm. So we were even asking people what they thought about naming and strategies for that. And, everyone is eager to give their advice, but not all of it was good. And I think that the worst advice we took, or chose not to take, was that we should use our last names as the name of our firm. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there that do use their last names, but for us, it was a particularly bad idea because at the time I was engaged and my last name was about to change. But I think on a more holistic sense, using your last name can be a very limiting factor for a firm that is interested in growth, that's interested in long-term existence, and potentially even multi-generational, potentially growing in terms of partners. And so we chose not to use our last name, and I'm so glad that we made that decision. That's all I have for you guys. Lance, Alex, thank you for having me on, and I look forward to your next podcast.
So great. You go first.
Sorry that I said ECHT. It is ECT Architects, just to clarify. So the best advice she ever got was no headphones. So I like that, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This spurs a question. Would you ever feel comfortable telling our guys that? Because I don't think I would. I don't like to. That seems very controlling. But I buy Courtney's logic behind really liking that. And here's what I would say is, nobody in the office has Beats headphones. So if anybody doesn't know what those are the ones that cover your ears. They're like the Bose. They cancel out all the noise.
Right.
We all are like iPhone head people. So we have the iPhone headphones. And what I like about the iPhone headphones is that it allows two-way sound, so you can hear what the heck's going on around you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how many times in our office do we have something comes up and then somebody pulls their headphones down and they go, oh, and then they jump into the conversation.
Yeah. Or so I like the concept, and I think maybe it's not the actual rule, but it's be engaged, listen to everything, talk back and forth. And what I like, one of our cultures at F9 is quick responses, quick learning. A lot of times I'll be telling someone to do something, and then maybe I'll have to do with design options. So Jason is the best at design options. So I'll say, make a design option for this, go grab Jason, he'll tell you what to do, right? So it's always sharing and learning and teaching. And I do that for a purpose, because if we get these guys in the habit of, I might have to teach this, I might have to tell someone this, then man, they better make sure they know it. And I don't have to say, hey, make sure you know design options, because I don't even know design options as well as probably they do. Yeah. So I love that concept, but I would just balance it with, sometimes there's so much going on in the firm that there's that learning and interacting, and then there's something called deep work. And deep work is that in the morning, no one else is around. Or sometimes if I have to do it, I'll put on my headphones just to zone out. Sometimes I put on my headphones, I don't even have music in.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. A lot of times I'm just like, I just need it a little bit more quiet.
Exactly.
Yep. So yeah, I think it's valid, but I think there is times when you can have it too. And then worst advice. I thought this was interesting too.
What an interesting perspective, because if we were ever to restart our firm, what were we going to call it?
Gore and Cayko. Just because I feel like that name is awesome. And I would want to spell your names Cayko, so people spell it, like do parentheses like P,
We'd have to get graphic-y, designy on that or something.
Because they always say Cayko.
They always say Cayko. It's the worst spelled name in the history of ever.
Yeah. But I get where she's coming from. There's so many firms where I see, and law firms too, it's just 3 names. And for some reason, these names can't be 4 letters like Gore. They're 14 letters each. And I'm not going to remember this. This is crazy. And some firms some architecture firms, I can't remember what they're called because they're 3 huge names. And I'm like, wow, you guys are huge. You have 50 people in Colorado. I have never heard of you in my life. Or if I have, I forgot.
Bolinsky. How about that? That's like a name I feel like would be like Bolinsky, Krasinski, and Jelinski.
If you do have that, but if you could reduce it like SOM,
initials? Yeah,
Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, and then it becomes this icon. But again, who knows if we're ever going to make a company called Gore and Cayko. It would probably just be more of a fun thing, because what we talked about here on this podcast is everyone needs to take ownership. And we've even talked about setting up a program so the employees can be the owners of the company too. So I think she has a fair point there, that if it's just named those 2 guys or one guy's like, how much ownership do I have? And it depends on who you're selling. Are you selling the person? Are you selling Liebskin? Or are you selling the firm? What happens when he goes away? Who knows? That's been a huge question for Gary Partners, for Liebskin. Zaha Hadid seems to be continuing on, even though she passed away. I still see projects coming up from their office.
Right.
So that'll be a test to watch.
And to give a little bit of insight on, or just how about our name, for instance? So F9 Productions. My gripe, but I'm over it, is though people will call us and then they'll say, "What do you guys do?" So it's not obvious what we do, But at the same time, I still like it because it's an icebreaker. Because people ask, "What does that mean?" And then it's a good way to segue into just kind of how we started and everything. It kind of brings things down to a humble level. But that's my take.
Look what I just added to our website, just so people know. Front page. We transform great ideas into amazing architecture. Click here to get a quote.
There you go. There you go. Now people know.
Now they know.
Good job, Al. Yeah. Tell me about this 30, 40. So thanks again, Courtney. Really appreciate it. We're happy to have you on. Al, tell me about this 30 by 40 video.
Okay, so this actually ties in when you brought up just minutes ago with your
literally
brilliant insight. Learn a new skill. So Eric Reinhold puts out videos all the time. He has a recent one on YouTube. I'll try to link to it, where people are just asking him a question, kind of an ask me anything. So everything's coming together here. And one of his advice to students was learn video editing software. And I thought that was great. That's another thing where it's unique. No one else is doing it. It can be beneficial to someone who's hiring you. I know one of our employees is a photographer. He's a photographer.
It's super helpful.
Hey, we need pictures of this. Go out and do it.
You wouldn't even, there was some images where we had to take out certain things being shown on the images.
And people and a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, so like
electrical lines.
Yep, doctoring them up to make them look, like seamless was paramount.
Yeah, so...
just anything visual. Jesus, that's what we're doing here, right? Architecture, visual. It's everything's visual. So any kind of visual extra skill you can obtain, go for it.
And especially, we have received plenty of resumes, and a lot of them are PDFs or a link to their website. If someone sent me a video, I look at all the resumes, unless it got crazy. I don't know why I wouldn't, but man, I'd watch that video.
Yeah,
I would watch that video hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, so. I like when people send both versions, when they send a PDF and then they say, oh, by the way, here's my digital portfolio. And usually what happens is I go right to the online portfolio, and then we don't really tackle the PDFs and stuff until we get into the interview.
Yeah. So our next segment is from our short friend. We just confirmed that he's shorter than both of us.
Really?
Yeah.
How short are we talking? Can we say it on air?
Yeah, like 5'6".
Oh my gosh.
5'6", maybe 5'4". I don't know if that's true or not, but it's my podcast. So. Man, I think he's under 5. I think he's like 4'11".
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Is his wife taller?
Oh, at least by a foot. At least by a foot.
Wow.
And he's okay with that. So that there's no problem with that. So
Yeah.
here's Nicholas Renard from Dig Architecture with NickReads.
Hello, best friends. I hope you all had a great week this week. A reading. In the most memorable section of his Citizenship in a Republic speech, Theodore Roosevelt captured his life philosophy in just a few sentences. The man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of good deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement. And at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place will never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Groovy. You're too late, Lance. I've already put in motion an elaborate plan, a series of events, diabolically designed to rid this mountain of you and your evil presence forever. Toodles!
So here, we'll start off with Lance. He has limited time left, so you might as well get your opinion out before Nick takes you down.
If you're my friend on Facebook, you've probably seen me say this several times. Those who don't create, critique. And if you are going to critique, have you first volunteered to do whatever the heck you're critiquing on? So it's I have a problem with critics in that regard. So that's my take on it is if you're listening to this and you are thinking about critiquing somebody, just take one, please, for my sake, take 3 breaths and say, have I volunteered first to solve this problem or whatever before I get critical on it? So, and if I haven't, then maybe I should, because you're not helping the situation at all.
Yeah. Or do I have any experience in here? Right? Because Ray Dalio, he's biggest hedge fund manager in the world. I think so. He has this idea that not everyone's opinions. He says not everyone has a right to an opinion.
Yes.
But I don't believe that's true. I think not everyone's opinion has worth. There's different weights to your opinion.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So you can have an opinion, right? Let's say you have an opinion on a subject, but so many times from only the stuff that I'm familiar with, and I'm trying to be, I'm actually trying to narrow my scope of opinions, right? Because some of this politics stuff, which you're into more, if I really think about it, man, I don't know. I don't do it. I'm not in it. This is my opinion. What is it worth? Probably not much. I can say that opinion, but when I hear stuff that I do know at least something about, it's frustrating where it's like, oh, there's so many things wrong with your fundamental belief of how this actually works. So unless you get experience in something, just know your opinion might be worth nothing. And if you are getting other opinions from people or critiques, know that maybe a ton of it is worth absolutely zero.
There's a technique. So I've been back into meditating again.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it's been great. Every morning. So
are you doing the app?
Yep, Headspace app. Everybody check it out. It's awesome, and I do 10-minute intervals. So one thing that I have learned and have from these meditation process is a technique called noting. So what happens is when you meditate, everybody has this idea when they first get into meditating. They're like, "Wow, you don't think about anything?" Nope. Actually, that's the point of it. Is these thoughts come into your head, and then you note them. You go. So let's say I thought about like, oh, I gotta come.
Al's so cool.
Al's so cool. I would note that. I would say, yeah, he's cool. And then what I tell little Al in my brain when he comes in when I'm meditating is I go, hey, you're cool. Hi, bye. And then it goes away. So I think the same thing happens here. Let's say you see something that you feel like you're going to critique. Note it. Note that, oh, I want to critique it. And then so you're thinking about it and you digest it a little bit before you react. So it's just you're trying to be a little bit more present and cognizant of how you react to things, and it helps you be a calmer person. Believe it or not, it helps me be a calmer person.
Yeah.
The guy who's the most highest strung in the office.
Yeah. And it's hard too because I actually wanted to ask. Cayko has a podcast. He's a Navy SEAL guy, wrote a book because there was a situation where there was this captain in this war, and he basically was a coward. He didn't do anything. And then when he got back on the base, he was talking about how he's the bravest stuff. And he's like, how do you approach someone that's semi-delusional? And I wonder if he'd say, like, is it even worth your time? And that's the question, because you see something that you might know something about, or you think you know something about, because you might actually not know something about it. And you just want to set the record straight.
Yep.
And that's, that's the weird thing. And are you engaging in someone where it doesn't matter? Are you actually going to make a difference? I don't know the answers to all this, but I think if you start by acknowledging that you might not know something about that, that's the first step. Because then another principle that I've heard is know the other person's opinion is strong. Actually make their opinion stronger. So instead of making a straw man, you make a steel man out of their
Exactly.
argument. And really build it up. And then if you can poke some holes into it, now you're talking.
Yep. 100%. Cool. Well, thanks again, Nick. Yep. All right, with that, last segment here, we're going to continue Al's awesome streak of code questions.
100%.
Chapter 32, best chapter ever in the International Building Codes. Encroachments, 3202.2.3 awnings. The vertical clearance from the public right-of-way to the lowest part of any awning, including valances, shall not be less than how many feet? A, 6'8", B, 7 feet, C, 7.5 feet, D, 8 feet.
Well, this is IBC. 6'8" is clearance for doors. I think commercially, 7 foot is the lowest that you can have a room. So if you would ask me that question, I would have known. And I'm just going to say it's very similar to that, even though I haven't seen one that's that low. But if a room can be that low, I'm going to say an outdoor room boxed by an awning can be that low.
So your answer is B?
7 foot. Yep.
Correct. Woo! The streak continues. Bonus question. What the hell is a valance?
I was going to ask you, what is it?
So I'll just read it for everybody because I had to look this up. A valance. A length of decorative drapery attached to the canopy or frame of a bed in order to screen the structure or space beneath it. So the same thing from, if you have an awning, right? You've seen like on a downtown Main Street, that's a valance.
Well, yeah. And then I was also thinking, 1940s running for president, you got that drapery thing.
You know who knows this answer?
Yeah.
Troxel.
Evan.
All right. Last question here. We'll wrap it up. 3202.3.3. Encroachments. How many feet above grade should not be limited? Encroachments. How many feet above grade should not be limited? A, 12 feet. B, 13 feet. C, 14 feet. D, 15.
What? How many? Explain that question. So
imagine if we were designing the Denver Art Museum.
Okay.
And we wanted to
have an overhang.
Have a huge overhang over into the street like it literally does.
Yeah.
By your former employer, Daniel Liebskin.
Yeah.
If we wanted to encroach, into the public right-of-way.
Okay.
That portion of the building has to be X amount of feet above grade in order for us to be able to do that.
Nice. Even if it's occupiable space, is there a differentiator there? Because you could increase how many, your usable area.
I don't know. That's a tangential question.
What are my options?
12 feet, 13 feet, 14 feet, 15 feet.
I'm just gonna go with the highest one. I'd say
congratulations.
100% nail it.
This guy is on fire.
I'm gonna throw something.
You should throw something.
Happy, excited.
Cool. Where can you find us, Al?
You can find us at InsideTheFirm.com, InsideTheFirmPodcast.com.
Yep.
Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter under Inside the Firm or F9 Productions. The Creativity Code has its own page. AlexanderGore.com has its own page. email us. My email is akg@f9productions.com. Please tweet at us. Please review this podcast. Put a star rating on it. Lance always says add 5, so you do that math in your head. and thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Keep getting after it.
See ya.